Good morning. My name is Taneva, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the CA Automation Global User Community Webcast. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the pound key. Thank you. Mr. Joseph Cabral, you may begin your conference.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening as it may be. Hi, my name is Joe Cabral. I'm Product Manager for Configuration Automation. And on this Automation Global User Community session, I would like to take some time and walk through a few of our new features that we have with 12.8.1. And before we get to that point, I just want a couple quick comments. If you need to ask some additional questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box as well. My colleague, Raj Shekka, is also on the line. He's a part of our development manager for CCA. So if I can't answer the question, Raja will be able to help support me. So let's go ahead and get started here. So obviously, I'm Joe Cabral. Let's get to this. All the legal statements, yes, this is training in some ways to help you out. So let's get started here. CA Configuration Automation released 12.8 SP01. And if you're unaware, it actually came out at the end of May. May 27th, it became GA and is readily available for download and for yourselves and other clients to proceed to upgrade to the latest release. So I'm going to pick a few of these, 6, 7, 8 items that I want to go ahead and let you be aware of with 12.8.1. One, we're going to take a look at NDG Discovery, the EC2 Cloud, Solaris zones, Hyper-V 2012 support. We also want to talk about deployment using Sudo, briefly on deployment using IP and server accessibility for 2. 3, we're going to take a look at the SQL Database Info, Oracle Instant Info, the Encrypt and mask default fields. 4, we're going to take a look at change detection, compare and filter customization, as well as just briefly talk about some of the reporting, service comparison servers, and so forth. 6, and we're going to go ahead and talk about a couple of the log files that have been requested. These are enhancements that people requested, but they're really valuable to our customers as a whole. So let's start here. I'm going to go ahead and discuss what we have. So one of our enhancements that was brought up, because we have a diverse group that exists out there in terms of compliance management and server management, we want to have the capability to discover EC2 clouds. So we want to focus on this enhancement. We want the user to be able to discover the servers in the Amazon EC2 Cloud environment using NDG and show the discovered servers in the server table. So we want to bring that in just like you would do with a standard Windows 2012, 2008, or a Linux server, and so forth. We want you to have that capability. So the goal is here to enhance, to extend the credential vault user interface to allow caching of required cloud credential information. So we added cloud service scan with the soft agent, also without the soft agent. And giving you a high level without going into to actually see what we've done, we created a new tab. So for the AWS EC2, we added under the credential vault profile to provide the EC2 access keys, preferable read-only access keys. You would go ahead. So you go into the credential vault, you find the AWS EC2 tab. You'll be able to access it with the appropriate credentials that you have with the Amazon. So this would add additional capabilities in supporting that as we go, as clients look at, well, I'm going to put my servers in the Amazon cloud. I also need to support it as a compliance. I want to have that capability. So we added that with the 12.8.1. So in addition to that, let's go into that a little further. So as we're adding it, we have two scan policies that we can look at. Again, one without the agent, one with. So we can go in there and say, look, I'm going to do a network scan. I can select a cloud service scan with the soft agent or without, and we can select that and perform the appropriate scan. While creating the network profiles, the user needs to provide the EC2 region. So you need to have that in part of your exclusion list, as well as the server instances that you want to manage when you make the discovery. So those are a few little caveats. Additional caveats are more from a security perspective. That's to make sure that the appropriate security from your company, your corporation allows you to access the cloud. Otherwise, there may be some issues with the agent accessing that. Just a little small caveat on that one. And then we'll get the example of that discovery where I said, look, we got this region. I would go ahead and have that discovery. I would see my server names there, and we know that we have discovered those, and we can follow up with whatever compliance, whatever additional reporting that we want to focus on. So that, in the simplest, is the EC2 Cloud, how we go ahead and discover the server and have that available to you. Now let's go ahead and talk about Solaris zones. Again, there's a lot of material here. We'll try to get through as much as we can. Again, list the questions as we go by. We had a request for an enhancement, discover non-global zones with shared IPs. So we wanted to make sure you as a user have the ability to discover non-global zones configured with shared IPs, where each instance in the global zones associated with those child zones are all on the same subnet. So we have to address that. So we want to allow the servers with duplicate IPs in a single scan. We want to be able to update the existing servers based on server name or MAC address. So when we look at that, we want to discover those global zones configured with the shared IP addresses where each instance of a global zone is associated with a child zone, all in the same subnet. And of course, some of those are duplicated, of course, 10.x. And we want to make sure that that capability we're able to provide that to you. So when you do the discovery, we know that, okay, yeah, this is associated with, under this global zone. So that capability was a big push from a couple of our clients that they felt that it was important that we take advantage and have that as a mechanism for asset management and getting those Solaris zones in there and providing that to you as a user of CCA. Next was Hyper-V 2012 support and discovery. So there's been a big push from out in the community to get more support for the hosts and guests and so forth, relationships with Hyper-V. This was a big one that I felt was important, as well as I saw from customers asking that we wanted to have that relationship. We wanted to be able to discover that. So users should be able now to discover with 12.8.1 the host, the guests, the relationships. This is from instantiable. Hey, can I get this installable? Whether it's server 2012 or it's the actual server 2012. There are two veins or two branches of that, but we do actually both. We use the new WMI namespace to discover the guests. So we're able to discover the guests and the relationships. So going forward, as you make your changes in your environment, whether that's the virtual changes that you're going to make with Hyper-V, we want to make sure that we can follow along with that and have that capability when we discover it, follow whatever compliance or blueprints that you're looking for. So now let's go ahead and take a moment and move on to deployment via Sudo, using IP, server accessibility. These are key items that have come up and are important to you as a client. From a lot from the Linux base, and that seems to be the primary use case for Sudo accounts. I don't want my administrator security. No, I don't want you to have root. I want Sudo. So we want to deploy the agents in a Unix server environment using a Sudo account. The user must be able to deploy agents via Sudo, thereby reducing the usage of root, just as I mentioned, based on certain corporate security requirements that may be set up. This enhancement, we wanted to add a new checkbox, and I'll show you a moment. checkbox, enable use of Sudo in agent installation. The new checkbox represents whether a given system account is either a Sudo account or not. If it's enabled for Sudo, we can select the box and give an account and treat it as a Sudo account and perform the appropriate discovery for that management. So here would be the example. So the user should be able to deploy the agents via Sudo account, thereby reducing the use of root, of course. So down here, if you were taking a look on the screen, you can see down here we can see the checkbox, enable use of Sudo. If we don't, if we're not using it, we put the appropriate credentials in there. We can navigate and discover that system, that Linux system, Solaris system, AIX, whatever, that we're utilizing Sudo to access. Next, we will talk about the agents using server IP. There was an enhancement request from the field deploying agents using IP if a host name resolution is not working. So this has come up a few times with our clients where user should be able to deploy CC agents even when the target host name cannot be resolved by IP or DNS, thereby providing an alternative method to perform the agent deployment. So, if a remote agent is failed due to target host name, it's not resolved while installation, we try to use the IP address as a fallback. If the remote agent uninstall fails due to a target host name, again, we want to utilize the IP address as a fallback. Then we look at server accessibility. We want to identify server accessibility connectivity. Users should be able to track a particular server through the GUI dropdown interface if the servers are accessible via any available access mode, WMI, agent, tenant, I'm talking about it in the next part here. A new column is accessible, is added in the server table view to display whether the server is accessible using any of the following access modes for discovery operations by the default column. It's just set to no. If access test is successful via the test server or discovery, then it's yes. So we're validating. When I'm validating, yes, my agent's up, I can get there, I got access. Yes, I can SSH it, WMI, telnet, and so forth. So let's take a look at that. This would be the example where I can look at it and say, look, okay, I'm looking at my server table. Oh, yes, is it accessible? Yes, it's accessible. Good. So there's an agent on it. I can even see the access mode that we're utilizing, which is agent. So that should help me out in terms of doing my own personal audit of what I've discovered. So is it accessible? Is it not accessible? Okay, so now let's move forward. Blueprints. We've had requests for SQL database, Oracle database instance, as well as encrypting and masking default fields. We'll spend a little time talking about that. So one of the enhancements that we had was MySQL database not discovered. Okay, so wait a minute, what's going on here? The existing Microsoft SQL Server blueprints for 2008, 2012, didn't have the capability to discover the database as a component. Okay, so that's a gap. We needed to figure that out. We need to understand how can we take more advantage to be able to address that. So the blueprint, how do we address it? When we did a blueprint discovery with MySQL Server database to distinct components, and I'll show you that. We want to look at the configuration details on the SQL Server instance. So I want to see the parent components. I want to understand the configuration details of the individual database that are available to my child components. I also want to take a look at what is nested from a MySQL perspective, what server instance has a child components when multiple instances are on the same machine. And then some of the parameters, the database name, server, are not user inputs anymore, but are fetched by the initial discovery. So this adds value into looking into our SQL Server. So some of the things, what do we have existing and what doesn't exist? So the focus for us was, 2008, 2012. So we wanted to add that capability We want to have that nesting. We want to be able to look into the instance that existed from a blueprint perspective and provide that to you as a management. So do I have access to my database? First, I get my server, looking at my components. What's in my database? What do I have? Am I in compliance? What information do I need to know? So one of the blueprints, we take a look at what blueprints that contain other components. So what do we go through this? We go through this process. So we go find our blueprint, 2008 server instance. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Then I'm going to go have allow blueprints contain other components. So we have a checkbox in the nested. It's important for me that. Then I put the modifier. I'm making sure that it's the MySQL database nesting. So then we can go ahead and proceed. Now I have the components that are discovered. So when I get my discovery, I have what's nested here. So I have the 2 parent instance components, and the other 15 child components are below those. Then we can go ahead and look at a little deeper into this. Blueprints nested in other components. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to select allow the blueprints to nest in other components. Selecting the MySQL database nested, ensuring that the component blueprint is the MySQL 2008 server instance, version 10.rx, so forth. So now I come back and I want to look at that nested relationship. So let me go ahead and go to servers. I find my server, the database that I have associated with it. I see my SQL 2008. I see the instance, the parent instance component, and I can go ahead and look at the child database components nested in the parent instance component. So now that I have that available to me, I can go ahead and make some intelligent decisions about my assets, and I can move forward with that. A similar approach was given with the Oracle instance. Well, we have the same area that we believed is important, not just for SQL, but also for Oracle. For those who have Oracle, we wanted to ensure that the existing Oracle blueprints for 10G and 11G, which did not have this capability, would be able to have that available to our users. We want to be able to collect that instant information and provide that capability. So in our blueprint discovery, we want to be able to discover the Oracle database server and instance and distinct components. Configuration details on the Oracle database server to be available for the parent component as well as the child components. The Oracle database instance, what is nested underneath the Oracle installation as child components and multiple Oracle installations on the same machine. Similar, we have the database parameters that come out with an instant name as the default value. So let's take a look at that as well. A little more detail. So we have 4 blueprints. We modified those for the Oracle instant nested. So we looked at 10G database for Unix, 10G database instant Unix, 11G, 11G. The incident parameter for these parent database fetches a list that has its discovery by the plugin currently dependent upon the etc or a tab file entries created by the DBCA. This script may be modified to customize the cases where your DBCA is not used to create the Oracle instance. So there's a little bit of work, and there's also in the release notes and the documentation. So we take the configuration data related to the license and product details in the instance of the blueprint that we've added. Again, we take a look at the Oracle nesting, how we modify that from the parent blueprint to generate the child's instant component, and I'll show you that. So we go through a very similar process that I just showed you with the SQL. We'll do the same thing with Oracle. I'm going to select the blueprint for Oracle 10G database. I'm under the component group options tab. I'm going to allow the blueprint to contain other components. I'm selecting my modifier, Oracle instance nesting, and then I get my parent database components. So I'm looking at this. Okay, I can see the component qualifier. I can also see the child's instances that are underneath that. So I can see DB, CA test 2, SD. I can see Aura 4, and so forth. Then we want to take it to the next one. So I want to see what next other components that would be the next other components that would have that are nested here. Apologies about the X. So we do the same thing here. We have the component group option. This time we want to select the allow the blueprint to nest in other components. Make the modifier. I select the actual blueprint that I'm interested in here. Next, I should have the appropriate nested relationships. So I'm now looking down from here, from the servers. I'm looking for my database. I'm looking at from Oracle, 10G database. I'm looking at here. I see my components. I see the 10G instance here. I also see the other instance down here below. You can see the DB test 1 SID. You can see the the Aura child's instant component nested underneath the parent database component. So we can start seeing the appropriate nested and go further down into the appropriate components as needed based upon your needs for that information. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about the Encrypt mask, the default field. We had a request, a very valid request, and I thought it was very important to get it in as soon as possible. User wants the capability to encrypt, mask the password entries and default value fields when creating and modifying the blueprints. There's a bigger kind of just a quick moment to go off topic. I'm looking to do more and more with users, and I'd like to see, and I'm actually so happy that we put this into this product, the encrypted mask. This was the big one that I was pushing for. Users will be able to define and encrypt and mask default values, components, parameters, registry keys, file structure, group class, and other parameters. The earlier version of CA, the visibility combo box selections were used to mask the discovery. The same visibility combo box section has been enhanced to affect the encryption and mask the default values entries in the blueprint. We can reference the default values in the component viewer, rule compliance results will be masked. So what we make is going to be masked. And all existing blueprints shipped to 12.8.1 have this feature incorporated. So making I call it more of a secure, just purely from a enhanced security part of this, I would say this is a great move going forward with 12.8.1. If you're on 12.8 already, I would move forward with that. So what are we looking at? And I apologize, this is looking at the screen. We have our typical thing where we go in here in a component parameter variable, and we see our default. Well, I don't want my password to be seen because I'm administrator 1, administrator 2. What if we divvy up the responsibilities, or that we have a user who has access to blueprints? Well, let's go ahead and hide the value is selected, and we can ensure that it's masked and encrypted. So we can select the visibility. I want to hide that, so now it's hidden. So that capability is there for you to make the appropriate security changes for your blueprints. Again, incorporates all the blueprints. Adding a safeguard for yourself when you decide, well, I'm the main administrator, I could have sub-administrators and so forth, but I don't want them to see the passwords that we may be utilizing. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about change detection and compare filter customizations. So one of our enhancements that we had, which is part of 12.8.1 now, we want to enable, disable change detection filters and hierarchically. So a user should be able to customize the blueprints in such a way that they can enable, disable change detection on specific folders and its subfolders and files in a very simple way of selection. So what we did here with this enhancement, we created a new tab, Manage Filters. It's added under the Blueprint Filters attribute panel. The tab is Manage Filters, and it makes it easy to apply the change detection to the folders and its subfolders and files rather than traversing manually and adding, it's just a lot of work. So we wanted to reduce that. So what was added for this support? Well, we had several requests for different selected filters when we incorporated those filters here. We want to set never to run change detection. We wanted to set time variant. We want to remove run change detection and remove time variant. So let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this. So my filter customization here, I'm going to go ahead and go to the blueprints. I'm going to select the management tab. I'm going to look at my filter, file filters and attributes. So I'm on the manage filters. I can select the appropriate action dependent upon what file filters and attributes that I have in the left column. I have that associated in the table here, and I can go ahead and set, never to run change detection. There's some cases where I've had customers say, I don't want it on every single file or every single attribute that's there. I only want it on specific ones. So, get that capability there. Can we use it? Yes, let's go ahead and use it. So we can set to run on change detection if, for example, there was a change detection on, say, a specific file. We'll call it, it's our temp file. In the temp file, just for our own sneaky compliance, we want to check on that. If somebody goes and deletes that or makes a change on it, well, what's occurred? Is there something caching to this temp file that we should know about? Maybe we want to have that change detection set. So that would be an example where we can go ahead. And then we can select the appropriate action, what kind of filters that we want to have. So additional to that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other filters. So we can filter on file size, not on timestamp. This is one request that a customer asked about. Users should be able to compare two environments, two or more servers where file size changes, but not create or modify time changes. And we want to consider the managing the files for comparative operations and results only if the file size is different. I really look at this as a diff, simple as a diff, but how can we take advantage of it? Is something changed on a set of files that occur? So let's go ahead and go in here. We filter on file size variant. It's added to the filter shuttle field in the blueprint detail panel. We went through that. So the file is to compare based on the file size if the filter file size variant is selected. And I showed you we can go ahead and select it. By default, the file size variant is not selected, so we need to go through that process. We want to filter on time variant and server specific as a high priority than filtering the file size variant. So let's take a look. So I'm going to walk through here. So I'm going to go to my blueprints. I'm going to manage. I go into my file filter and attributes. I'm going to select the appropriate example here, the executables. And I want to have that set for in my available filters file size variant. So if something changes with my executables, the size has changed, I want to be notified. I want to be aware of that. I want to have that available to us. So again, by default, it's not selected. We have to go ahead and filter for the file size variant in an exclusion filter list, whereas all other filters are exclusion filters. This was a big request from a couple of our clients to help us out in comparative analysis. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the reports, server comparison services, component servers. We had an enhancement, and now it's part of 12.8.1. New report for service comparison. This report allows comparison between two services. We want the comparison between current data of two services or snapshots which are designated. Again, we go back to some of the use cases where we look at, I discover a set of servers, I want to ensure compliance, I make the appropriate snapshot. If something changes, I have the snapshot, can I roll back? This would fulfill into that area where we can go, I want to know about it. I want to know the service comparison. And we can go forward from there. So the target tab of the report provides a drop-down box to select two different services and their corresponding snapshot as a source and target for comparison. So we want to do that analysis. The source as well as the target snapshot can be chosen specifically using the select the snapshot option. and the execution of time of report depended on the number of servers and components and so forth. So this report allows comparison between two services, the comparison between the current data of two services or a snapshot which are designated. So this is, I grabbed a simplified report. There's still a lot more that can be seen. We would go ahead and take a look at, I can see my source snapshot. We can find the differences that are found. We can go lead in there and take a look at it. What's going on with this? And when was that time that the change occurred? So we start reporting upon it, which is adding more value. I need to also report and maybe set that up from a compliance perspective. Yes, something changed. Yes, we want to automate that change, but part of taking accountability is to go ahead and say, have a report for it. This is when this has occurred, so I can provide that my appropriate management. Then we take a look at server components and servers. A new report for blueprints discovered. So we are interested in the hardware, storage, network components on server. The report to provide hardware details, storage details, network details, information about blueprint discovery data. All options and the filters are optional. So the enhancement details here, this report displays data discovered using the out-of-the-box server component category blueprint. And we want to look at the blueprint created, we created by copying that blueprint server will not pick up by this report. For specific server component selections, the data selection tab provides the checkbox, so we go through that process. So, again, sorry, my apologies. I put both of these reports here. I'll have to send that out to give you guys an example. So I apologize. I'll have to send that out. That's my fault. So we'll move on. CCA grid server log file management. Couple of main requests that we had. We want to be able to delete reported instances, and we want to delete old logs, with old log files. So this was an enhancement. Delete report instance of saved reports. So we have report templates when they're saved and run. A report instance will be created on the saved report. So, okay, quite a few reports. Different clients have numerous requirements for reporting, and they run reports multiple times during the day. Instances for these saves are created if they're scheduled as well. So how do we implement this? How do we address this? We can get an increasing count on report incidents for these save reports if they're scheduled daily, weekly, as I mentioned. And to delete these instances, either via cleanup tasks during the CCA server startup, deletion process is controlled via the admin properties. So some of you are aware of this, the max.reports retention instance size prevents the VO admins group. This property ensures the number of report instances a custom report can have after the execution of the cleanup job. And the cleanup job executes every 24 hours. So this is very similar. I've worked with other reporting products with FCA and others. You have a scheduled job that goes there, flushes out the appropriate old instances that we want to keep or not keep, which in this case we want to remove. So to delete the report instance on the saved reports, either via cleanup task during the startup process, this would be we go in here, make the appropriate change to the duration of time that we want to have. So we would go ahead and select that. I want to have it for 24 hours. You can note that the changes max reports retention instance size, and then we utilize to or a set number. This is also noted in the release notes and as well as in the documentation. Then we also want to take a look at deleting old log files. This is a key item that was brought up. We thought was important to put into 12.8.1. We want to clean up those logs. So at present, there's no automated way to delete the old CCA logs. That's unacceptable from my perspective as a product manager. So what we did is we did an enhancement. The user should be able to delete the old CCA log files using configuration properties. So we'll go back into properties. We added a new configuration property called delete old CCA logs.interval under the CCA group and properties. The default value for those properties is a -1. It means it will not delete any logs. So if we don't want it, then -1. But if we want to go ahead and set the appropriate properties, we can set it from 0 to 365. So from the date that we want to go ahead and do every day, do I want to go delete? Okay, I have one day, I'm going to go delete, 24 hours, or I'm going to go delete, 2, 3, and so forth. You get the point. So we go in here, and we go ahead and set the appropriate, properties. We go into delete old CCA log interval, and based on what we have for this example, we set the value of the property to 3, meaning that the CCA server, as well as the grid node, will consider all logs for deletion which are older than 3 days. So anything older than 3 days that we've allocated, we're going to purge that. In some environments, you may want to go ahead and say, look, I have to keep 7 days, I have to keep 14 days, or, I just need to purge these logs based on the requirements that I have for my system. We just can't have these logs sitting on the system. Or maybe I use some syslogging and I take those logs out anyway. Come on, CCA people, help us out. We need to purge this where we've already passed those on to our syslogging. So we gave you that capability to go ahead and remove those based on a duration of time, so that we go ahead and purge those log files. Okay, that is a very brief, and I thank you for your time, and I'm open for questions. There are quite a bit more things that I didn't touch upon here in terms of the 12.8.1 product that came out on May 27th. There's many bug fixes. So I'm really excited about what we've done with 12.8.1. Big one was making sure that we got into the cloud. That was really important. Us to address the logging, to address the Oracle, the SQL, and a big two for me were the Hyper-V being very important for many of our customers that are looking to transition there, as well as the customers that are Unix-based where they have Solaris zones. I actually came from an environment where we used primarily Solaris zones, and amazing enough, now they've transitioned the team I used to work for now into Hyper-V, so 2 birds with 1 stone, if I could say that. So again, I'm really excited about what we're doing here, and I look forward to your input, your feedback as we go ahead and progress. We're underway for 12.8.2, and we have a few DARs from several folks that may even be on this call. Also looking for our next future release for 12.9. So any input, any enhancement that you feel that's important to your business, please let us know. We want to make this product for you guys that are committed to compliance, asset management, to utilize CCA to the fullest. And if it's not giving the fullest, just let us know. We want to make sure that you get full value out of your investment. So again, if there's any questions, comments, I'm here to listen.
At this time, if you would like to ask a question, press star then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. That's star 1 to ask a question. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster.
Joe, we also have a question in the Q&A.
Yes. I see the question. Does CCA delete server inventory data that is obsolete, or any reports that shows something that has not changed since long, or probably for a long time here? I'm trying to recall if we actually have a properties for this. I may have to tap Raja. Raja, are you there?
Raja, if you're online, press star then the number 1 on your telephone keypad.
By the way, Raja Sekka, he's my dev manager for CCA, And anything that I can't get off the top of my head, he's here to help out. If not, I will go ahead and make sure I answer your email. I'll answer this.
Roger's line is open.
Roger, are you aware? Sorry.
Yes, Joe, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, okay. So obsolete data, for some of the inventory data we do delete, but not all. I mean, there are configuration properties wherein some of the data can be deleted, which actually exceeds some X number of days kind of thing, but it's not applicable to all inventory data. And so that is a configuration property, and you can use that configuration property to delete some of the relationships information which are very old for the server.
Ravi, does that answer your question, or do you need more details? Okay, so Robbie wants to know, please tell about that property name.
Okay.
Do you recall the property name, Raja, that we have for the server inventory?
I need to check that out, Joe.
All right, so Robbie, our action item is to go ahead and get you the actual property information, the actual name for that, so that you can manage that. So we'll add that on the action item for us to provide that to you. We'll try to get that out as soon as possible. Any other questions, comments?
There are no audio questions.
Okay. So again, as your product manager, I'm really excited to get more involved with, and I'll just preface, I actually came over from the service assurance side of the house, took on this role just last year, end of last year, and I'm come up to speed with a lot of the things that we've done here, and I'm really excited. What I'd like to see is more involvement, and that's why I'm starting this out, have more community involvement. And like I said, listen to you as a customer. I want to be your voice within this CA. So if there's something that is critical to your business and we can see it as a benefit to everyone, we'd like to see that going forward. And again, I want this to be a valid and value add inside your infrastructure. So again, I hope to continue to support with you and work together to improve the product, make more value out of it, and if there's questions, concerns, please let us know. And I want to be that voice for you guys. So I appreciate your time to join this call and to go over to 12.8.1. We'll hopefully have another one soon as we keep progressing with our 12.8.2. I'd like to go ahead and have more calls to let you know on our progress. So again, I look forward to having more involvement with this community.
We have one more question from Robbie in the Q&A.
Right, sorry, I missed it. Yeah, please.
It's in the Q&A. Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Robbie. Post your question.
Let me see. Do I have it here?
Eva, do you have any questions on the line?
No, ma'am. There are no audio questions at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I want to get. Okay, so just before we get off the call, I just want to make sure that you can see. Again, I'm Joe Cabral, and there's my email, joseph.cabral@ca.com. So if you have questions, follow-up, we discuss enhancements, I'd gladly like to have that conversation. So once again, I thank you for your time, and thank you for joining this call. And if there's anything we can improve, again, I'm glad to hear it. I want to hear it.
Joe, do you have time for the last question from Ravi about Red Hat?
Yes, let me see. I just brought it in. Is the regular Red Hat Linux 5.0, 5.1 with compliance rule, will it support 5.6 also if it's modified?
Joe,
from a blueprint perspective. Roger, comment?
Yes. So Ravi, basically we updated the compliance rules of Red Hat around October, sometime in October 2010. We used the published PCI and CS compliance rules at that point of time. So anything which, any rule which or recommendation which updated afterwards are not a part of the compliance rules.
So basically, we have up compliance to the 5.1 or 5. Do we have it at the 5.5? I can't recall. Let's just say it's 5.1 for this discussionary point. So because of that, we probably need an enhancement request for us to support the 5.6 compliance. Correct? Since obviously there would be some compliance changes. An example would be that Windows 2012 compliance. That was obviously there would be some changes, Robbie, from 2008 to 2012. Same thing would be with 5.1 to 5.6 if there's any changes from a compliance perspective. So as I said, if it's critical to the business, please please let us know. We can go ahead and see if we can start enhancement for that. Okay, great. Any other questions before we conclude?
And there are no audio questions.
Okay. Once again, I do thank everyone's taking the time out of their day to join us for this call. As always, I want to be here to support you. I want to make sure that you get full value out of the product from CCA. I know this is most customers, this is a component within whether the service management, whether it's in their asset management, either from an ITIL or operational perspective, it's a component. It's a valued component. And that value component has to meet the needs to help you be successful in your management of compliance, asset management, and so forth. So with that said, please let me know if there's requests, if there's something we can help you out with. We'd like to be a valued partner and continue from that. So once again, thank you for joining, and I appreciate your time.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.